cups.
Okay, the webinar started. Let's see. We've got a few attendees coming in, which is very great, very exciting. Give it like a few seconds and then we can like go ahead and start. But yeah. Cool. We're just going to go ahead and get started and people will join in. Thank you guys again so much for being here. And welcome everyone who is participating or watching it today to our FabFems Friday webinar today with a focus on STEM and environmental sustainability. And we've got a fabulous lineup of panels, a lineup of people throughout June and July, and really hope that you can come and join us for our weekly panel discussions with we've got current students, alumni, and a lot of STEM role models just from our community. I'm Miria, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm an outreach communications intern with the Women in STEM within the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement at University of Texas. And today we have Jillian helping us up with the Q&A portion of our webinar. So it's very exciting stuff. Yeah, and then you can find many of our FabFems Friday webinar panelists and more amazing STEM role models in the FabFems directory, which is a national database of women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics professions who are just inspiring role models for young women. And the FabFems directory is managed by the National Girls Collaborative Project, and it's designed to help increase career awareness and an interest in STEM. And so STEM role models can create a FabFems profile and indicate how they want to be connected, either just by serving as a role model with your profile online, so students can read about experiences, or volunteering to be contacted by email or other options. And students, you can search by keyword or a variety of factors such as zip code, field of work, ethnicity, or interest of engineering. And there are a lot of options at the website fabfems.org. Yeah, very exciting. This next slide, we will be adding all of our FabFems Friday webinars to our YouTube channel. It's such a tongue twister. Anyway, to our YouTube channel and other videos just to help future and current students subscribe to our channel to get notified when new videos are added. And Jillian will be throwing that link in the chat if you want to subscribe. Really appreciate it. But yeah, so today our focus is on STEM and environmental sustainability, and we will have each panelist just share some quick introductions here in a moment just to get us started. And then after those introductions, we'll have a facilitated panel with some pre-selected questions. And I'll also be taking questions from you guys, so use the Q&A area to submit your questions at any time. We greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure the panelists will too. So yeah, we can go ahead and start those introductions. Panelists, I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds each to give your name, pronouns, hometown, major, and degree, and then a little bit about your a little about where you work, and then a fun maybe hobby or something that you like to do outside of work. Yeah, if anyone wants to start, go for it.
Okay, Amrita McGuire. I work for Dell. I am a biomedical engineer by training, but I work at Dell doing digital transformation, hardware, and human machine interfaces. Based out of Cedar Park, Texas, long way from home, starting out in England. And I love traveling. I've done 99 cities in the last 10 years.
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Sandy Eapen. I grew up in Houston. I live in Austin, Texas now. I graduated from UT with a bachelor's in chemical engineering, and I am currently having my own independent consulting company in the area of environmental sustainability and social impact. And similar to Amrita, I huge traveler. I guess I count countries. I've been to probably over 50 countries, definitely post-college.
I'll go next. My name is Colleen Fletcher. My pronouns are she and her. I grew up in the suburbs of Houston, the Woodlands specifically, and now I live in Denver, Colorado. And I graduated in 2008 in civil engineering, and then I worked for Federal Highway Administration. I'm the Wildlife Crossings program manager there, and I've been at Federal Highways for about 13 years. My hobbies are, because I live in Denver, hiking and snow skiing.
I'll go next. Hi, I'm Jordan Keller. My pronouns are she, her. I live in Houston, Texas. My background is in chemical engineering. I graduated from UT in 2013. I work at BASF, the world's largest chemical company. And for fun, I guess like everybody on the panel, I really enjoy traveling. And when I do travel, I prefer to get in some hiking.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All this traveling sounds super exciting. Very fun stuff. Thank you again for sharing. And yeah, so let's move on to talk a little bit more about your career path specifically. If you guys could also just go one by one and maybe just share a little bit about how you chose your major and how you got to be in your current position.
Okay, I'm going to start. For the benefit of the people on this call, what your degree in STEM does, it gives you the tool sets, because I've gone from artificial heart design at Texas A&M to environmental health and safety at General Motors, interning at Intel, working in fabs, chip manufacturing, vehicle assembly, then to laptops, and now I'm doing data center infrastructure. And I just have a generic bachelor's in biomedical engineering, master's in biomedical engineering, and an incomplete PhD, ABD, in interdisciplinary engineering. And my foray into sustainability has only been in the last 3-4 years. So those who are looking into sustainability, you don't have to have a traditional path. You can carve your career by volunteering, by signing up for classes, for joining action groups, climate change groups, standards committees, things like that.
I'll go next. So I chose to study chemical engineering a long time ago, really because of my desire to make a positive impact. That's kind of what I've always thought to do. I wanted to help people. I knew that engineers were really good at problem solving, and I figured, okay, if I can solve problems, I can probably make a difference. And so I chose engineering. I've worked for BASF chemical company for my entire career in a variety of roles. And similar to Amrita, I only recently got into sustainability professionally within the last few years. It's always been something that I've been personally passionate about. And so I got involved in a lot of our sustainability groups within the company. And then I started working on a master's towards sustainability. And the last 2 jobs that I've held have been focused on sustainability. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity, but I think the jobs that I've had along the way have really helped me to develop that skill set that has enabled me to get here.
I'll go next. I'll start a little earlier. So in high school, my friends were all into the humanities and history, and I thought, oh, that's me too, except I, don't like history or reading books really. So my mom pushed me into engineering, and I went to a SWE event at UT when I was in high school, and I walked away thinking like, oh my gosh, these girls are so nerdy. I don't know if I want to do this. And so I was like, troubled and back and forth of, I feel like I'm not an engineer, but I kind of like engineering. And so really kind of having to do some self-reflection and figure out that, this is what I like, and kind of putting different words on it. And in high school, I was really, me and my best friend, we built a haunted house in his attic every year. And so just that process of like, envisioning something, designing something, creating something, and like being, coming up with something new, right? And problem solving how to do it and how to execute it, and kind of seeing the vision and bringing people in with you, right? It's kind of, I needed my mom's help, to help me realize like, that's civil engineering, that's building and constructing, that's problem solving, and like all of the steps along the way. And so kind of having some self-reflection and stepping back and realizing like, this is a good path, you can make it who you want, and kind of fit into it. And so then kind of fast forward, I work for Federal Highway Administration now. And as I started out in Federal Highway Administration, I was a roadway designer. And so designing roads, and we worked in national parks. And so I had big projects in Yellowstone National Park and Denali National Park. And we didn't use the term sustainability really back then, but it was called like lying lightly on the land and finding context sensitive solutions. And so it was less about, you know, just engineering for the sake of engineering, but it's being comprehensive. It's considering the environment, it's considering the cultural impact, it's considering the historical impacts, and bringing that all together to have a holistic solution, and using engineering to kind of get you there, and to meet all of the differing competing needs and interests. And so, and then in recent years, I've leaned more into it as kind of the political appetite is really increased, and the ability to kind of say those words about sustainability and environmental resilience and things like that. And now it's kind of coming to the forefront. And we do have a designated program for wildlife crossings in Federal Highway Administration. So being able to be part of that and really lean into that has been an awesome opportunity.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I decided, you know, in high school, I was good in chemistry, and I thought I would apply to UT as a chemistry major, maybe do pre-med. And before I started, I was a little concerned if I graduated with a chemistry degree and I changed my mind, I didn't want to do pre-med. I wasn't quite sure what kind of jobs I would have, and decided, I heard about chemical engineering and saw so there were good careers afterwards, and decided to pursue it. You know, definitely there is some chemistry, a lot of math, really sort of challenging degree, but you know, similar to some of the other panelists, there's just so much skills you gain that are really valuable throughout your career, whether it's problem solving, analytical, technical, kind of systems thinking type of approach, really valuable. And so I'll give you, you know, a range of things that I've done in my career, just to show that, and kind of similar to other comments, that you really don't have to know exactly what you're going to do, you know, after college or high school. You have the opportunity to pivot, to make changes, and I've done a lot of different things in my career, and so I'll give some of the different types of areas where environmental sustainability specifically has played a part in my role. So I joined Dow after college in 2001, and was working in manufacturing plants focused on energy reduction, energy efficiency at these huge plants in Freeport, Texas, and then did that for a few years. And fast forward, I moved to New York and got my MBA and Master of International Affairs. And really since then have done a variety of different things. I've been able to work in Africa with the UN Development Program on looking at how do we bring in solar technologies in rural villages where people don't have access to electricity, to also working with the UN in India, trying to look at, these are like three-month projects, how do we create a biofuel, a partnership with a biofuel company in a really poor district of India to figure out how do we bring sustainable fuel, but also create jobs and lift people out of poverty. And then kind of fast forward, have just done other things. I got to have, things with the city. During when I lived in New York, I did this pro bono project with the mayor's office of, pro bono is when it's like kind of like volunteer work, with the mayor's office of long-term planning and sustainability, where I got to work on this campaign called Green YC, where you get to educate New Yorkers on how to live sustainably. And so we had these like campaigns and posters around about bringing sustainable bags and reusable water bottles and lots of stuff. And that was really fun. Fast forward, I was at American Express, where I was more in like business type of roles, but I was really passionate about environment and try to work with employee volunteers on thinking about how do we integrate sustainability in our products and services. And that was more like volunteering. And then I kind of said, like, I really want to focus on impact, and shifted my career into this area called sustainability consulting. So as a consultant, I get to work with lots of different companies. I worked a lot with bigger financial services companies, like names you may have heard of, like MasterCard or PayPal or Bank of America, and helping them figure out, how do you develop a environmental sustainability or just broader sustainability strategy and program. And then in my most recent role, close out with this, I was at a company where I was heading up sustainability at a software company, and I got to help build a program from scratch. And one of the areas I also was leading was our climate change program. You know, what's our strategy? How do we measure our emissions? How do we report on our emissions? What do we do to reduce it? And so lots of stuff there, but lots of opportunities in environmental sustainability, lots of different paths.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, you guys. And I really do like that point that I feel like all of you kind of touched on, is that there's no really straight pathway or one sort of set pathway with regards to environmental sustainability, or just like STEM in general. And that's really cool, because I feel like young people, including myself sometimes, I know especially like first starting out high school and college, like there was a lot of pressure, either like self-imposed or like by the people around you, to kind of know exactly what you wanted to do like for the rest of your life, and have that like pressure and stuff. And so it's really cool to see, you know, people pivoting, and essentially just you guys are like grabbing these experiences, and like learning all these things and having these really cool experiences and pathways. And yeah, I kind of want to also dive a little bit more about your the work you do specifically. If you guys could just talk a little bit about maybe a specific project or product that you've worked on that can kind of give our audience a glimpse of your day-to-day in the STEM work world, that would be great.
I can share a little bit about my work. So my role is the manager of our biomass balance solutions platform. And basically what that means is that I work to bring renewable carbon into the value chain. And so if you know anything about chemicals, or maybe if you don't, chemicals are everywhere, right? So everything that you touch, everything that you use, from the toothpaste in the morning to the clothes you're wearing, to the computers, to what your homes are made out of, your cars, etc. It's all made from chemicals. And typically, most chemicals are derived from fossil resources. And so what I'm working to do is replace some of those fossil resources with renewable or biogenic resources. That way we can reduce our dependency on fossil and lower our carbon footprint, as well as the carbon footprint of our customers, and then therefore consumers. And so what my work entails is working with a variety of different teams, both internal and external, to understand are there any customers who have certain sustainability goals that might be interested in these product offerings that we have? How can we actually produce them? So this is where the problem solving and the engineering background helps. I know where we make certain products, what production steps are required, where I can introduce renewable components, etc. And then also I'm part of our global net zero accelerator team, who's working on all sorts of different sustainability initiatives around the world. And so I interface with them constantly to learn best practices and different lessons learned, how things have been implemented in other parts of the world, how we can improve, and really what the customers value and what the end consumers are wanting. And so again, when I chose to study engineering, it was all about wanting to make a difference. And I think that if the world's biggest chemical company is able to switch their reliance from fossil fuels to a more renewable, sustainable option, that could be a huge impact. And so I'm really excited to be part of it. And I can share with you all, this is not just something that my company is doing. This is something that every company is doing. All chemical companies, all energy companies, oil and gas, you name it. And it's just a really, really exciting and inspiring time to be part of this industry, because I think that big things are happening, and a lot of it is being driven by people who work in STEM.
So I'll talk a bit about, environmental social governance. ESG is the new buzzword. And the reason why I want to talk about this is it's kind of, it's not just products. We have to change our mindset. We have to be able to use our laptops for longer. We should be willing to repair them. We should be able to reduce, reuse, recycle. Sometimes you can be ahead of the curve, like more than a decade ago, Dell would plant a tree for every laptop they sold, but they were ahead of the curve. Nobody was looking at it. Now they're looking at a laptop that you can take apart with just a screwdriver. All the components are made of either renewable material or recyclable material. And they're looking at, they've removed ocean-going plastics from their supply chain to the tune of 443,000 pounds. These are little things you can do, but it's not easy because nobody wants to pay more for the laptop, right? So in terms of environmental social governance, it's not just what products we develop and the messaging, but it also, we have to change our behavioral mindset. And that is where people like you and the future sustainability people need to get involved with, evangelizing, supporting things. On my outside my professional work profession at Dell, I also volunteer for a sustainability task force with the Engineering Society. And what we're doing is we're developing, and we've got people from all over the world who've just joined this task force. It's like a grassroots organization. And we want to develop standards in the United States in the future, like, ANSI standards, ISO standards, because the Europeans are way ahead of us. And, we really need to get there. So it's just not about products and affecting product, but it's also about evangelizing, walking the talk, behavioral changes, getting an understanding of the societal impact. It's not just climate change. It's like we're dying of thirst, we're dying of heat, our planet's getting warmer. So all those things have to be intertwined. And so for people interested in environmental sustainability, it is a multidisciplinary approach in picking up things that you do, just not in your career, as Sandy's part has been, or your Jordan's part, or Colleen, starting from, on the roads and pavements, and we have the biggest highways in the world here in the United States, to, little things affect change, but it takes money, it takes time, it takes resources, but it also takes a mindset change. And this has never been a better generation to actually drive it, Before it was like a nice to have. We're at the point where it's a must have. There's no planet B, right?
Great point. So I'll go next here, and my focus is on wildlife crossings right now. And so if you think about it, right, I'll give an example. In Wyoming, the elk during the winter, they're living down in the plains, kind of a lower elevation area because it's not as cold. They can survive there. They kind of wait out the winter. And then in the summer, whenever the snow melts and they can go up to higher elevation, that's where the quality vegetation is. That's where they're going to kind of feed and nest and reproduce. And so they need to be able to migrate. And they're migrating through a lot of land that we over time have put up barriers. And yes, there's private barriers of fences and private property and things, but there's also public barriers, and the roads are a major barrier. And so the wildlife, they have their own transportation network where they're trying to migrate and get across the land for various reasons, for their own future and sustainability. And then we also happen to have built roads in those same places. And at the time when we built them, we weren't thinking about how we were blocking the wildlife. And we weren't thinking about the long-term impacts. And there's the short-term impacts of, right, if you hit a deer, hopefully you're safe from that. There's over 1 million wildlife vehicle collisions a year, resulting in tens of thousands of serious injuries, hundreds of fatalities. loss of property damage, about $8 billion in costs, societal costs every year. And so there's the direct impact to humans. But then there's the secondary impact to humans through the loss of biodiversity and the impact to wildlife. And long term, right, we need to continue to support habitat connectivity. We need to continue to support the wildlife and continuing to survive and continuing to have a kind of diverse species and promoting the ecology of it. So with the Wildlife Crossings program, we're kind of trying to give people the tools, sometimes including funding, so that they can figure out what they want to do. And so sometimes that's building some fencing along the highway so that the animals can't get onto the highway, causing crashes. Sometimes that's building an overpass or a land bridge where the wildlife can go over the road. Sometimes it's culverts or bridges or things so that the wildlife can cross underneath. And so we are doing all the planning and the researching and the collaring and the monitoring to figure out kind of what are our needs to help protect humans and our safety, and then also to protect the wildlife and their mortality long term. And what can we do there? And so we're standing up the Wildlife Crossings program to help equip locals and states to do what we need to do for kind of long-term sustainability in this realm.
Awesome, super interesting. Yeah, I mean, as you hear, there's so many areas of environmental sustainability, biodiversity, water, air, climate. I'll give an example that I kind of briefly mentioned around climate change, because I do think it's definitely, you know, one of our most pressing issues of our lifetime, especially for future generations. You may or may not have heard of the Paris Agreement, climate agreement, where you know, countries around the world have kind of committed to reducing emissions, and there's I think some goals now where we need to reduce our global emissions by 45% from 2010 levels by 2030 to keep global warming, I think, below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so there's so much work that governments, companies, individuals have to do. And so I'll give you an example from the company perspective. Lots of companies have to take action. They're getting pressure from investors, customers, employees. And so, you know, I was responsible in my last company of developing a climate program from scratch. And so that kind of my day-to-day, you know, varied. In the beginning, it's like, well, let's measure our impact. You know, how do we measure our greenhouse gas emissions, right? And that can be in your facilities, it could be in your supply chain, it could be any fuel you're burning, you know, at your site. And I worked at a software company, so it's different from, say, BASF, where, you know, you're having burners and lots of fuel burned at the site. And then it's really looking at, okay, what, you know, setting some goals around working. And I've worked with different people across the company, right? Whether it's people in who are our office managers, who lead our manage our office buildings, because they help understand what is our energy usage, and they may have ideas on, you know, what we can do to reduce energy, to different people across the company, whether it's engineering, to procurement, to HR, lots of different people involved, and working together to figure out how to, you know, where is our biggest sources of greenhouse gas emissions? What goals should we set? Where can we reduce? And working together to set those goals. And then also just thinking about how do we report our progress? And also how do we engage people? So I formed like a green team of employees. Some people have mentioned it, like other employees who are really passionate about environment and want to help, but they may not have formal sustainability roles. Kind of created a team for that. You know, that sort of day to day, sometimes meeting with them once a month, getting their ideas, but also involve like, how do we communicate to different people how much emissions we're using, what we're doing, and what our goals are. And, you know, companies often produce an ESG, environmental social governance report. And so, and as part of that reduction effort, there's things about just like turning off lights and just using less energy, but there's also, you know, different strategies companies look at, you know, how do you use more renewable energy? You know, is there a way you can work with utility providers to use more renewable energy, which will help reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Or can you purchase carbon offsets and renewable energy credits where, without going into a lot of detail, where, you know, there's lots of projects around the world that are creating renewable energy, and that helps reduce emissions as well. And so lots of different areas. I know that was sort of a broad range of things, but that's sort of from a company level, very, very basic of like climate change is a huge issue, and companies have to have strategies, report on the progress, and there's so much innovation needed still, no matter where you are in this space. So lots of opportunities, no matter kind of what direction you want to go.
Thank you so much. It's super inspiring and interesting to hear all about your guys' work and stuff. I'm going to direct a question to the audience really quick. Not a question, a reminder to submit your questions in the Q&A area so that we can have a bunch of really interesting and awesome questions for our panelists. But yeah, to you guys, I have one more question for this part of this facilitated discussion. I feel like it's definitely very easy to think about kind of all like the doom surrounding, you know, global warming and climate change and all these things. And so it's really great to hear you guys talk a lot about all the things that excite you and it's definitely reflected in the way that you guys have been answering these questions, just seeing how passionate y'all are. So that's really great. This last question is, what inspires you or excites you about the future of STEM and environmental sustainability?
I'll jump in. I think just the time is right, and the time is now. Right? I mean, you heard that not all of us started our careers explicitly about environmental sustainability, but we found our way there, and there's more opportunity now than ever, and hopefully it continues to grow. And there's, right, you've heard of the diverse opportunities there are. And so I wasn't good at chemistry, and I don't like chemistry. So thank goodness Jordan and Sandy are around to find the, you know, the chemical engineering angle to helping environmental sustainability. And right, there's a whole world out there and different pieces and roles that everybody can play. And it kind of helps out on the global scale. And we need all of us, and probably more of us, to really make an impact and a difference. And so the time is nigh, the opportunity is here in our hands, and it's just super exciting to be a part of it.
So I'll jump in. I think, like Colleen said, the time is now. There's a critical mass of people now, even at Dell. So from software that can choose where your energy source comes from, that can tell the data center, you can reduce your greenhouse gases by picking solar energy, wind turbine energy, etc., which Sandy just touched on. So something as simple as a software that's running your data center, that's running your power supply, to at the level of chip design and BASF about making things better. You know, BASF always had these things about we make things better. At Dell, I do about making it easier in terms of user interface engineering. So what it does is it makes it easy for people to pick, say, a feature that allows your data centers to run at a lower temperature, less heat, less water. Generative chat, GPT, everybody's jumping on this AI trend, right? Has anyone actually looked at the water cost of these things? There's an interesting protest in Netherlands that happened because Microsoft data centers were running chat GPT, and the whole cities became water deficient. This is a country that is just under the water level. They've never had water shortages. So I think there's much more to be done, just not in engineering, but in terms of messaging and evangelizing. And I'm probably going to hit up a few of the people here to even join the Sustainability Task Force if they're interested, only because I think it's the strength in numbers, that critical mass is going to change it. And I think we're at this point where we're like, yeah, it's no longer a myth. things are changing, things are happening. We're seeing things in few years that people saw change in 100 years or 200 years. And that is making us sit up and take notice. And so problem-solving skills from your STEM and your engineering and your science and your math and your data analysts and your mathematicians and your architects, are things that now can be intertwined into your disciplinary curriculum at UT or elsewhere to get that little bit of knowledge to start going, so that when you pursue your future, you can create and pivot roles, as Sandy said. So like I said, I went from being a biomedical engineer to a data center hardware engineer. I mean, you can't think of things two polar opposites, right? And that's what I think is very encouraging for this time and this generation. And now, as Colleen said, the time is now.
Yeah, I feel like everyone just said great points. So there's just so much innovation and opportunity available. I mean, definitely when I graduated, 20 years ago, and never thought like working at a chemical company such as Dow, where now, and similar to what Jordan mentioned, there's oil and gas and chemical companies are innovating on their materials, how to make it more, renewable and safer, and things that you would never think of 20 years ago. And now, especially with AI, there's just even a whole different level of innovation, good and of course some scary. Don't know where it'll take, but there's just so much need, and no matter kind of what role, you don't have to be like a pure engineer. There's lots of roles, whether you're in government or a company or a nonprofit or academia, where lots of areas where you can kind of integrate sustainability. And some of the links, whether it's like circular economy around waste to, again, climate is, there's going to be so much need there, water, there's just a lot. So I think I'm just excited about the innovation and just, how do you kind of bring in these new technologies like AI that's really changing a lot of what's going to happen in the future as well. So it's exciting. There's lots of career pathways. So you guys are, I hope people are encouraged to pursue meaningful, you could have impact in lots of different ways.
I think for me, the most inspiring takeaway from what's going on in sustainability right now is the collaboration. A lot of these challenges require a huge amount of teamwork, and we're seeing that, and it's from very unlikely ends of the spectrum, parts of industry, what have you. A lot of it, in the chat, we've been talking about circularity. How do we take maybe one industry's waste and create a new loop instead of sending that to a landfill or burning it or into the environment? How do we make that a valuable raw material that I can then take and bring into my plant to make a new product? And we're seeing collaborations between cities collecting waste, from consumer goods companies to chemical companies to renewable energy providers who are working to expand access so that the manufacturing of these products has a lower footprint as well. And so I think everybody really has a role to play, and this stakeholder engagement across the value chain is at an all-time high, and it's just increasing more and more. And folks they're thinking about things besides just circular economy, besides carbon capture, a lot of focus on water security and safety, biodiversity. How do we design things to look and act more like nature? And Rita touched on it at the beginning. It's a whole mindset shift, and we're really seeing that across the board. And so I don't think that there could be a more exciting time to be part of it, because the time is right, as everyone has already said.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Definitely very inspiring to hear you guys kind of have that similar sort of mindset about now being the time, and I really appreciate that. It's very inspiring as a young person who often has climate anxiety, which is so great. But But yeah, so now we're going to move on to our Q&A section. And again, audience members, feel free to submit as we sort through those. Jillian, if you'd like to take it away.
Well, before I take it away real quick, I do want to touch on the fact that, or retouch on the fact that, yes, the time is right, but also it's a necessity at this point. And it's great to see so many young people involved in it and interested in taking this further. So I'm glad we're holding this panel session to begin with on environmental sustainability. I think that's making strides forward. It seems that some of the people in the audience section are interested in learning about what they can do right now. So we're talking about high schoolers here in the audience who are either soon transitioning into college or that's a little ways off. So what are some of the things that they can get involved now to perhaps make that pathway forward in environmental sustainability a little bit easier for them?
I would say one thing that you could do just on a personal level that everybody can do, look at your daily routine, look at activities that you're doing and ask yourself, could I do this better? Is there one small change that I can make today? Could I walk instead of drive? Could I bring my reusable cup? Could I change what I'm eating this meal? Maybe I'm going to shop at a thrift store instead of go buy a new outfit. Just challenge yourself to make one small change every now and then, and that will really make a huge difference. And our industry has done a great job of putting safety first. We all have this safety mindset, and that's amazing. And I think our next challenge is how do we develop that sustainability mindset so that everything we're doing, we're conscious of it. And no action is too small. And so there is always something you can do, and there is always a way that you can make a difference.
So, kind of getting into what Jordan talks about is you can do, this is about shifts, right? So what Jordan talked about is sprinkles, little sprinkles in terms of how we change our behaviors. Then there are big shifts that you can do through education, through being a change agent, like joining projects, going into classrooms which talk about sustainability or fuel cells or solar panel cells, things like that. Or you can, as students, develop your own curricular project and build it around sustainability themes. There are lots of STEM programs out there. And I mean, when I say lots, I'm like the hundreds that you can look into. Then there are like modular shifts, which are interesting, which is like the EU last July said, that's it, too much e-waste. We're going to have one common connector for mobile devices. So everyone is going to use USB-C. And we're talking about millions of tons of e-waste now will dwindle down in terms of 16 different USB-A, USB-C, USB old-fashioned, non-USB, proprietary dongles and, charging things. I mean, you'll walk past a charging station in some countries and there are like 17 or 18 various connectors to charge people's phones, right? That's ridiculous. So that's, again, you can do little shifts as a person, as an individual, but then you can start, looking at universities and companies. And McKinsey says that one of the biggest factors now and in the next decades to come is companies that are socially responsible are going to be companies that people prefer to do business with. And it is making a huge difference already. People are seeing companies like, oh, they're offering warranties. They're offering to repair my things. They are giving me a path for me to YouTube and repair, because this is a generation of you can look up anything in YouTube and fix it yourself, right? How many of us have not looked at YouTube to try and figure out if we can fix it ourselves first before asking someone else, right? This is like it is. The time is now. So there are things you can do as sprinkles that Jordan talked about. And then as you chart your career as a student, you can start looking at, I'll give the example of Switzerland. They go by the motto sustainable. They don't like cars. They have an amazing public transportation system. I traveled 4 hours, 4 different trains just last week, 3,000 kilometers, and the price was reasonable, right? That's the mindset. Even like I went to an International Students' Day in Basel, and even the 8-year-olds and 6-year-old kids knew all about EcoSoft, as in, you have compost, you have trash, you have recycle, nobody, and these are young kids, 5-year-olds, 8-year-olds. It's the mindset. So that also, I think, is where we can be advocates and evangelists. Does that answer your question? I put 1 or 2 things in the chat on where you can join climate change, where you can look into some sustainability things, and I'll send more after the study is over. It's the sustainability development goals and all those call to actions that come out of the World Economic Forum and the UN.
Can I just jump in on like a tactical matter? So the time is now when we're trying to like make the business case and win hearts and minds of why environmental sustainability is critical and key, and we need to do something about it. But my hope, hopefully it's not naive, is that, if you're in high school now, by the time you get through college and graduate, we'll be at a more mature state with this, and it'll be more normalized, and it won't be, oh, I have some task force and I'm trying to have a sustainable solution. It'll be, oh, I've incorporated sustainable solutions into whatever we're doing because it's the right thing to do, because now I have a good business case, because there's a cost savings piece to it, because customers appreciate it, because that is the norm. And so I don't know how much value there is on trying to really hone in on, environmental sustainability, and as much as it's just incorporating that mindset, incorporating this holistic approach to whatever your technical role is going to be.
And it's not just not restricted to STEM, really. It's everything. There's also the aspect of the social responsibility. And yeah, kids in high school are probably all going to be driving electric vehicles, or, being mindful of where my electric vehicle comes from, what are the sources, what are the batteries, what are the materials. You all will become more discerning than, oh, I just have either a Tesla or a Prius or, limited options. You'll start thinking, oh, well, hybrid, I'm still using petrol or gas, in this country, gas, and those mindsets will change. But y'all will be actually the leaders that will change. The tidal wave will come through y'all, through this, I think this generation, as Colleen said. It'll just become part and parcel of your daily persona and your daily behaviors.
And I guess a couple other things I'd add, just, lots of different ways, as you've heard. Some other things could be just looking at how you can even just volunteer in your local communities with some type of, maybe environmental nonprofit. So for example, here in Austin, there's Keep Austin Beautiful. You can sign up for park, lake cleanups. And that's just a great way to just be out in nature and just feel like you're serving the community and helping the planet. Also, there could just be like little projects that you can do at your school, neighborhoods, churches, about I'm like, oh wow, there's opportunity to set up recycling, or maybe not buying things that have single-use plastic. There may be like many projects you can kind of lead and spearhead and take the initiative as well. And then definitely going to events like this, learning from other people. Since I come from the corporate perspective, you know, for those of you who may be thinking about that route one day and really interested in companies, maybe pick a brand that you really like, whether it's Target or Dell or something, and look on their website for their ESG sustainability reports and kind of see the things that they do, and you know, see if there's things that kind of inspire you as well. But yeah, lots of different ways, as you've heard from this panel.
I would say, yeah, get involved in the clubs and things that are going on at your school, but also speak up. Ultimately, speak up, talk to your teachers, talk to your principals, your community leaders, and ask them, are there ways that we can do a little bit more than we're currently doing, so that it's ultimately, I think, to sum up here, a series of conscious choices that lead to, in the hopes of more subconscious choices in the future, that those choices don't have to be made in a conscious effort, that they're just part of the norm, as Colleen mentioned. And I think we don't have any other Q&A questions that haven't been answered, so I'll pass it off back to Miria.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys again so much for participating in this panel. We all really appreciated it. Yeah, we've reached the end of our webinar, and just hope our audience, you guys have learned a lot about from our fabulous panelists, and just about the STEM pathways in environmental sustainability. Jillian over here is going to add some links to that chat again, just for your reference. And yeah, thank you guys again so much for joining today. Thank you again to our panelists, and we just look forward to seeing you guys next week at our FabFems Friday panel. I'm not sure which one it is. I think I actually forgot. Jillian, do you know which one it is? Nah, I don't either. But if you guys subscribe, I think it's to the rest of the panels for the summer, you should be getting emails regularly. And yeah, we hope to see you guys all there. Yeah, have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.